All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Lens Sessions with Advanced Design. I'm Hector Silva. I am your host today, and today we have two wonderful speakers that are joining us from the West Coast, the Bay Area to be specific. Our guests are Phnam and Mardis Bagley, both industrial designers, futurists, educators, husband and wife, a very powerful duo. They are the co-founders of Nonfiction, a design firm that turns science fiction into reality for a better future. I love that. By the way, their technical approach to design and endless sense of curiosity has helped them create many iconic and first-to-market designs. Phnam and Mardis are the hosts of Future, a video series that demystifies design and the future, and they are here today to talk about the future of design. Thank you so much, both of you, for making time to be a part of our community and for being here. I'm going to turn things over to both of you, and I'll let you kind of present to our audience about your topic. I advise, for those who have questions, please, I encourage you to ask them in the Q&A, not in the chat. I will do my best to integrate as many questions as I can when we start the Q&A. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Lens. Thank you, Advanced Design. Thank you, Hector.
Absolutely.
We're super stoked to be here. It's going to be really fun. Well, we have very funny names. So Phnam, that's me.
I'm Mardis.
So it's Phnam like phenomenon and Mardis like Mardi Gras. That's how you recognize it. So let's share our screen. All right, full screen right here. So Nonfiction, some of you may or may not have heard of this company. We are 4 years old, and we've been in the business of industrial design for about 15 years each. And before that, we had different careers. So we're going to talk a little bit about our origins, and then we're going to talk about the subject of today, which is design for a better future. And design for the better future is really what Nonfiction does at its core, what we inject into every single project we do for clients or for ourselves. So hello, this is us. So we're going to do a little intro individually first, but before that, as Hector was saying, wife, which is why we're in the same room during the COVID time. And we met 15 years ago. We met 24 hours after I landed in the US. I moved from France. So I was born in Paris. At the bottom is the hospital in which I was born. It's a very famous hospital. It's the oldest hospital in Paris. It used to be a gunpowder factory, used to be a prison for prostitutes where they put bodies during the plague. I mean, crazy history. And history is very important to me in everything that I do, which is why this picture is here. I was also educated in design in France. I went to a school called Strat, which back in the day was very well known for car design. And then after spending, 22 years in France, I moved to Denmark. So I continued my studies in industrial design at a school called Design School in Kolding, in the city of Kolding. Kolding happens to be right next to another town called Billund, where Lego bricks are from, which is why you see this picture. And then in 2004, I moved to New York. I found this super cheap flight from Paris to New York, and I took it. I barely spoke English, and I found 2 internships, one at Randomly Design, one at A2, and I designed a lot of flatware during that summer. That was pretty fun. Also, I learned to speak better English than I did back then. And then I moved to Texas, 2005, moved to Houston, Texas, and then Austin. In Houston, I did my master's in aerospace architecture. If you've never heard of it, that's completely normal. I think there's like 4 to 5 students per year in the world who graduate from this program. So I graduated in 2006. What I did there was design, aerospace, everything, rovers, crew transfer modules, inflatable structures, everything to do with going to the moon and Mars, and I miss that world.
Can we move this to the center?
I can't. And then in 2007, we both moved to California. We moved to Santa Barbara first, which is where I was working at lifestyle design as an industrial designer. And then in 2011, we moved to San Francisco. We worked at all those companies that you see right here. I worked as a freelancer at all of these companies. Lunar for 5 years, IDEO for a while, Fjord, which used to be Matter, Enlisted, Herbst, etc. And I also taught industrial design for 4 years at California College of the Arts in San Francisco. Also in San Francisco, I started my first company called Eternal Lux. So what I love about history is also the craft, so the craft of manufacturing things the right way, in a way that's very durable and very sustainable in that way. So I started learning from Emblem Leather Atelier how to make handbags and wallets and things like this completely by hand, using traditional manufacturing processes like hand stitching, hand cutting, and putting together, rather modern designs using centuries-old techniques. And then, I love to travel. Everywhere I go in the world, I have a watercolor book with me, and I love to draw and paint architecture, portraits, and getting to know people all over the world and see what kind of richness I can introduce to my next designs. And then next, I'm going to give it to Mardis.
To Mardis, yeah. So I did not grow up in Paris. I grew up in the Midwest in a town called Champaign-Urbana. It's 150,000 people with about 40,000 students. So it's heavily influenced by both education as well as living in a cornfield. And this duality was really, really interesting for me. In fact, we're looking at the oldest established experimental plot in the US. And in Illinois, it was really interesting. It's the beginning, Champaign-Urbana was the beginning of the explorer for the internet. Is the very first one created, and there's a lot of other interesting things like supercomputers and all that right in that small town. So I also grew up building a lot of things. Half my family are contractors, the other half are nurses. So every time I'd help my father build a house, or later on help Habitat for Humanity build houses, I'd always draw them out, and I'd start to create these sort of storyboards of how to build houses. And in this example, it was often, each one of these people in the drawing actually is a character in my life, and then it helped me remember things along the way. So building was really, really important. So prior to industrial design, I was attending the University of Illinois, and I studied well, multiple things on my journey, but one of them was graphic design, and ended up at the beginning of sort of the internet revolution, building Flash websites, animating them, building physics into them, allowing them to really live on their own in a way that traditional HTML didn't. And you can see some of the logo work, and I did a lot of branding. From there, I went and did my industrial design degree in Houston, where I met Phnam. Shortly afterwards, I graduated, moved to Southern California, and was given an opportunity to partner with a couple other people to build a Bluetooth earbud and speaker family. And so that was a great experience in really diving in deep about manufacturing process, the marketing process, everything from initial ideation all the way to retail distribution. And our speakers at Felt Audio were in, Staples and Best Buy and a few other ones. And what was really nice about this was I was still pretty young in my career, but also gave me the opportunity. I collaborated with Astro Studios on this. So over the years, after moving to San Francisco, I've worked with Lifestyle Design, Lunar, Herbst, Fjord, which is now Matter, very similar to Phnam's with a few additions like Ammunition and Native. And I also teach at CCA, the California College of the Arts.
And you teach? And
I teach sustainability and social impact, which goes back to the first image of the cornfield and the school. Layering sustainability into what I do on a regular basis in my job and in life choices is very important for me. I would say the interesting thing about this list of different studios that both Phnam and I've worked at is that we rarely ever worked on projects together. It was usually separate departments or separate projects or whatever until Matter hired us.
In 2015.
In 2015, which was really kind of funny because we had to show our portfolios and go through a traditional sort of interview process at the same time, which was really kind of awkward, but we both landed the contract job and knocked it out of the park and really realized that we can work exceptionally well together. And that was sort of the first seeds of what became our studio, Nonfiction. So again, CCA. Oh,
what is this? I don't know. Sorry.
Power through that.
This shouldn't be here. Okay. Nonfiction is the company we're running right now. So all the background we just gave you is everything that happened before 4 years ago. So Nonfiction, if you go on our website, nonfiction.design, you can, scour a little bit what we've done in the last 4 years. And the way we present ourselves is not only industrial designers do industrial design. Mm-hmm. We actually do a lot more than that. As you can see, our backgrounds are very varied. They're quite technical. Right, we love figuring out how to take an idea and turn it into reality. So that's why we call what we do turning science fiction into reality for a better future. And part of our teams are industrial designers, architects, engineers, and we consider ourselves futurists. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's go for a ride. Mm-hmm. These are the kind of companies we work for. Probably seen recognize a bunch of these logos. We work with technology company, aerospace company, fashion company, kind of like transformational technologies, and what else do we have in here? Audio. Yeah, many types of companies, and the list is growing. We're working with small startups all the way to large corporations. We work with clients from 4 continents, mm-hmm. and really our multicultural and multi-background type of team is helping a lot, bringing a lot of richness to the work that we do at Nonfiction. One thing that's important about why we started Nonfiction after working at all those other companies is the company culture. We wanted something very specific in how we run Nonfiction. So there are 9 points that we apply to pretty much everything that we do. One is experienced designers only. We don't have interns, we don't have juniors. Every single person on our team has put products or architecture on the market and knows exactly how to develop that. 2, unconventional methodologies. A lot of the times we get asked by potential clients or people we interview, well, what is your process? We pretty much have a process for every single project that we have. Mm-hmm. We create something very, very unique, and we put forth certain things that people tend to not consider as strong as research, but we think are more important, namely intuition, personal experience, and logic. Next is behavior design for behavior change. When, as a company, we want to pretty much exclusively design things that don't exist yet, we have to change behaviors. And there are psychological hurdles we have to go through to make that happen. Mardis, mm-hmm. You want to take the next 3? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were into a collaborative experience. So one of our early processes in doing any project is identifying stakeholders and how they are part of the process, and we engage them regularly. We try to keep a very honest dialogue, and this is really, really important. We also practice lean product development. And this is, we are at our core a design studio, but we also have very high level chops in engineering, UX, and we try to overlap all these. So not only does the process go very quick, but it cuts costs and it mitigates risks, which is super important right from the beginning. And then finally, long-term relationships. We're happy to say at this point, 4 years in, every single one of our clients is a reoccurring client. They're still with us. They believe in us, and we believe in what they're doing. So we're very happy to say that.
Next, we have elevated design for the planet. As much as we can, we integrate sustainability and good practices of manufacturing and choice of materials and ethics in everything that we do in order to make sure that the products we put out there, are not harming anyone. We're not interested in doing boring stuff. We're very upfront about this. If a company just wants to copy another company, they can, see the door. That is not what we're into. We're into really reshaping the future so it's better than what we've been living with the last 20 years. And then finally, design for the better future. That is what we're going to talk about today with a lot more images that we've done so far, and really turning humans into superhumans and building a future where humans flourish, where everything and everybody on the planet is finds a level of happiness and fulfillment that's wonderful, right? So today's agenda, talking about design for a better future, we want to make everything better. We want things to fit better, perform better. We want to sleep better in order to work better. We want to treat better. We want to serve better, feel better, and prepare for a better future. So let's start. So to us, the future should be more natural. You're probably surrounded yourself with a lot of rectilinear, boring, black, silver-lined products. We're kind of tired of seeing that stuff. So we really want to merge nature with technology. And there are many things that can come out of it that are very beautiful. A more elevated view of ergonomics, introducing intuition in the process, more discretion in the way things are connected to your body, more harmony, designing things that are actually a body extension, natural interfaces, responsiveness, and perhaps integrating parametrics in the way we design things. So this first product, you've probably seen a lot lately. It's been winning a bunch of awards, yay. These are the human headphones. So human headphones are the first on-ear headphones without a band. And this is how it looks like on the head. And you might, ask yourself, well, how does it connect to my ear? Well, it's actually a very sophisticated, story and exercise in ergonomic design. So we used, very sophisticated CAD modeling, 3D printing, testing, and circle like this. And we actually created this this product that really fits the ear. And as you can imagine, fitting ears is very difficult, because if you look at everybody's ear around you, some are big, some are small, some are fat, some are irregular, and having a product with only two adjustment pieces that fits most ears is actually very difficult. But we're able to do that using the technologies that we have access to today, like 3D printing, CNC machines, and integrating technology like Cap Touch to make sure that the product is works the way it should work. And one thing that's also interesting about this product being natural is that buttons don't really exist in nature, right? Unless they're on the face. You want interactions with a natural looking product to also be natural. So that's why the capacitive touch surface on the outside is how you control everything. If you want the volume up, you just push your finger up. If you want volume down, to the other way. Next song is going forward like this, and it's extremely discreet. Also, turning on and off the product is just by separating the two halves and putting the two halves together. It's very natural. Again, we went through so many rounds of 3D prints for this project. At one point I couldn't even look at ears, to be honest. It was a little traumatizing, but we figured out so many things about ergonomics and now the product is, winning awards and all that. So next.
So the future is hackable. So what happens when we merge neuroscience and technology? We start to overlap and start to have this conversation about, we can start measuring through EEG. We can look at flow states, targeted stimulation, neuropriming, and all these different things to help us become more hackable as humans. And this is a really interesting place to be. So we designed what's called the Halo Sport. And the Halo Sport is a set of headphones that has a neurostimulator at the top. And a neurostimulator is essentially very, very minute amounts of electricity applied to your brain, and specifically over the motor cortex, which is helps you move. Every time you move your hands, your legs, your mouth, your brain's using the motor cortex. And what makes this is really interesting and aligned with the user group, which is athletes, is by stimulating this motor cortex during the training exercises and the warm-up, you're allowing the athlete to move quicker and learn skills faster. And they've tracked up to 40% faster learning of new skills. And then, you know, imagine if you're competing with someone, as this person is in the US Olympic team, you can learn your skills faster when you do something and get out on the track and compete even better. So we're starting to get to that point where technology can really, really be used to make effective changes on nuanced levels. And this is what's really, really beautiful about it. Okay. So the future is balanced.
So yeah, the future is balanced. If we take the information that we have about sleep and merge it with technology, and get information from the EEG, monitoring your sleep, stimulating during your sleep, monitoring your quality sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. There's actually a great way to get better quality sleep. So there's a wearable that we designed back when we were working at Lunar for Philips. So this is the Philips Smart Sleep. It's a wearable that you put on your head, and it basically stimulates the brain so you get better quality deep sleep. The way it does it is that while you're experiencing deep sleep, your extra information that you've been accumulating during the day is eliminated through stimulation, electronic stimulation. And yeah, what's great about this is that if you know how to hack your nighttime activity, you can actually be a little bit more focused during the day and be more efficient at work as well. So using, working closely with neuroscientists and really developing products that people are willing to use every day of their life to really make a great change is something we're very, very interested in.
So the future is non-invasive. And so prior to this, we've seen a lot of healthcare devices and medical devices that are very invasive. You need a surgery, you need a drug, you need something. Well, we're starting to get this point also in technology where we have vibroacoustics, we have light stimulation, we can measure heart rate variability, we can measure galvanic skin responses and things like this to fine tune us as individuals. So this is the Calitrio. And we built the Calitrio to help people with what's called essential tremors. The essential tremors, is if you've seen typically in elderly people, you'll see people that the hands kind of shake. The essential tremors, as shown in the video here, really disrupts life. You're not able to do the most simple things, drink a cup of coffee, use a computer. Well, through neuroperipheral stimulation, which is using electricity instead of drugs. It's using electricity as a medical tool to apply therapy to people. And by putting this device on, similar to a watch or athletic wearable on your wrist, it applies very minute amounts of stimulation to counter the feedback loop that people experience. And this has seen a lot of really, really great success. Part of the fun challenge with the Trio is that if you can imagine, you already have a condition that your hands aren't moving very well. You have to put on a device, you have to charge it. There are all these nuanced targeting and use cases. So we designed it with a number of different artifacts that allow it to easily be put on and removed. If you see in the charging base here, it has a sort of scooped funnel shape. Well, that combined with a magnet allow people to charge their device without having to target closely this very detailed interaction. And we sat in many, many user studies with actual patients. And there's nothing like seeing somebody with what we call a level 10 essential tremor using this device for the first time and just almost crying because it's so easy and how easily it's changing their life. So, and then finally, another part of the challenge with this is this is shipped direct to consumer after they are prescribed it. How do they actually get it out of the box? So the big insight here is like, let's remove all the clamshell packaging so they don't have to tear that open because they have limited mobility. We don't have the twist ties or anything. We sit all the products proud and we use the instruction units to hold everything in place while shipping overseas or wherever the assembly plant was.
So one thing that's cool about the future is that it can possibly save lives. And here we're going to take information and mix it with technology. And what we get is real-time information using intuition at a much higher speed, augmented reality, which can give us multiple layers of information using eye movements and what we know about cognition, thermal optics, imaging, and 5G. And this is a generation of a product that we designed. Basically, is designed for firefighters to see through smoke. So if you can see here, basically firefighters walking into a house on fire can actually see, like you can see on the right side, they can see the edges of things. They can see people moving in the dark. And when you don't have the system, what you see is on the left, right? It's a lot of smoke. It's very, very confusing, lights from other firefighters. So really, this kind of technology can actually shave off, 15 to 20 seconds off of saving a family out of a house and perhaps save lives as well. And to do that, obviously being involved with a lot of prototyping, making sure that the components, which were very fragile, fit in there, were easy to assemble, and we ended up with a system that's currently being tested with the Menlo Park Fire Departments. So next, one thing that's not super evident with a lot of technology today is that the future should work for me, not against me. Mm-hmm. Right? So here we're taking service design and specifically airline service design and really merging it with the technology that we have access to today and really integrate robotics, optimal space, motion sensors, architecture, antimicrobial materials, entertainment, and sustainability. So this project was actually done during this lockdown, during COVID internally. We wanted to really create solutions that not only made flying safer, but also the whole experience better. Because you've probably, seen over the years that seats were getting closer and closer to each other, and the service was getting crappier and crappier, even though the price of flying has gone down, which is something that people like. But there are ways of using design to make the experience so much better, so much safer for everybody. But at the same time, be aware that flying is a business and that people need to make money. So this first image is about using very basic technology that's been present in hospitals for decades, using UVC technology to blast through the cabin when people are not around, right? Don't really do that when people are around. It can be quite dangerous. And also completely reorganizing the seats, right? They're not in a put together in a rectilinear manner. It's kind of wavy, and that actually creates a little extra space left and right that can create a world of a difference in the comfort, the visual and the physical comfort of the passengers. We're also using different ways of enjoying entertainment. Instead of that tiny little crappy little screen in front of you, perhaps it's an AR system that uses motion sensors technology. Perhaps during long hauls, flights are getting longer and longer because of flight efficiency, fuel efficiency. So where do you sleep on a 17-hour flight from San Francisco to Singapore, right? Perhaps we can have space where you can lay down horizontally and for 30 minutes or an hour and get some sleep. Robotics, integrating robotics in the cabin for very mundane service like getting a glass of water or a cocktail or whatever. So instead of having to push that button and bother the very busy flight attendants, we believe that robotics can actually support their work. And we are, already in a low-touch, no-touch economy, and everything about a new airline design needs to, follow these guidelines. So the bathroom, everything that's in common, lounging area, we have to think about how to give access to people so they don't have to touch anything to open any door or turn on any faucet. Thinking about entertainment, kids traveling at a very young age, you can't really expect them to be on their parents' lap the entire time or to sit still. So perhaps there's a space where they can move their bodies a little bit. And then finally, completely rethinking the galley. If you look at galleys in airplanes right now, it looks like they were designed in the 50s, right? For the space era, which is kind of cool, but not really today. So updating all of this, integrating robotics, and a better way to organize things and to make it a lot easier for the people who work for the airlines would be a wonderful place to go. And then finally,
the future belongs to everyone. So what happens when we look at where education is now and where jobs are now and where education is going in the future, as well as jobs? How do we prepare kids for the future that is sort of so ambiguous? We know not all the jobs will be there. We know that they're going to have new needs and new skills, and we're going to have to build the educational system that's better for them. So we talk about how can we build in childhood autonomy? How can we have lifelong learning? Because we all live now and we go back to school, we watch YouTubes and videos, and we're always learning. How can this become part of the regular society rather than just going to school and working the rest of your life? So we look at sensory play and unstructured play, because play is super important in bringing in new ideas. It makes the mind very plastic and available and accepting of these things. And conscious living, we know the planet has some challenges, to say the least. How do we, have them work in a carbon neutral sort of environment, giving back? We talk about borderless connections, where the world's so connected nowadays, and hacking and physical health, and a number of different things that we'd like to introduce into our educational system. And as I mentioned earlier, we kind of have these different tenets that we look at and follow. Mental health and happiness, great. Carbon neutrality, synesthetic learning, hackable school, and borderless education. So we developed a system with the Singapore and Japan. We were actually invited to help work on a new school that had all these different ideas about the future of education, the future of work. And this is sort of the map that we came up with. But the fun stuff is really looking at the top-down view of what a school might look like. And so if you know anything about education, it's always been a very linear process. You go, you study, you regurgitate ideas over and over again, and you kind of jump through hoops and then you graduate. So this is a very linear, and what we call, when you look at the building, rectilinear, right? Very much like prisons. We want to look at the buildings and stuff very much in a way that's very alive, very organic looking, and very modular.
So here, a lot of people, when they think of parametric design, they think of very complex surfaces that are very beautiful and organic, and that's a wonderful way to use parametric design. But in architecture, we want to use that to really adapt the size of each area to the number of children or adults that are going to use it, and that can actually help us come up with very wonderful and unique design ideas. And then when it comes to activities inside of the school, it's not at all about sitting in this like rectilinear way facing the teacher who's just regurgitating a bunch of information at us, right? That doesn't really work. None of us designers really remember that as great time. But however, touching things, smelling things, connecting things, building things for ourselves, tasting things, that's what we want, right? And then play, play is not just about staring at an iPad or playing with a stick. It can be a lot more sophisticated than that. It can be about moving your body. It's about sensory play. It's about rest, and it's about finding where you are on the spectrum of introvert to extrovert, and really feel comfortable in that space with others. Again, architecture. If you had to design your own school, would it look like a prison? Because did you know that most architects for schools are actually also architects for prison? Yeah. And you can tell, you look at the thing, is very boring and rectilinear and kind of like designed to move masses. But if I were a child, I would like my school to look like a monster, like this is, and we went for it, and it's been so much fun. And again, instead of having a curriculum that says, you must be good at math, at reading, and at science in order to get into this fancy university and do a job you don't like for more than 2 years. So really giving the opportunity for children to learn the way that works for their neurodiversity. We are all different. We are more inclined to learning certain way easier than others. And we also all have the opportunity to inspire others to learn things they would otherwise not be interested in. And also redefine what a classroom is. Why a classroom? Why does a classroom need to be right next to another classroom? Why does it need to be a cube? You know, why can't it be outside? Why can't it be, you know, half in nature, half sunk into a garden, you know, covered by a rooftop? Why can't it be, you know, quieter on one side and a little bit louder on the other? So really opening the opportunities for any child to enjoy their time in school. Because if you think of all the hours a child spends in school, you know, you really want to make this count. And you know, another type of classroom would be a mobile classroom. This one completely made out of recycled materials, and it is also a recycling center. And that's what's wonderful about this is that it really puts the child or children in general in society. Because right now we're putting them in schools and kind of forgetting about them for 8 hours during the day, and then they come back home and then they become someone else. But we really want children to be integrated in the ecosystem of a city, whether it's work, whether it's the way a city consumes things or recycle things, and really give them some sense of worth and purpose. And really, you know, as we do this, we really want the children to be given the opportunity to hack their environments. And that's about making their own furniture, giving them the tools and the materials to really have fun with it. You know, why do we have to sit on super boring desks and, you know, staring at a blackboard or laptop? You know, why can't we touch and feel and smell things that are so ridiculously beautiful? And then giving them the tools, building the tools for them to do that easily, right? You don't need to go down to coding to do anything. What if the tools could be learned instinctively and built very quickly by children by themselves? So in closing, this is it for our presentation. In closing, there's a quote from our very good friend Joe that I'm reminded of all the time, every time I work on a new project, is that you have to know what good means to you. You know, good design, good manufacturing, good for the planet. And so know what's good means to you, and don't change your mind when things get hard. Because product development, convincing the world that good design is a good decision, taking the right risks is important for a better future. That's what's going to be important for the future of our field. So before we jump into Q&A, there's a couple of things we want to share with you. So as Hector was saying in the beginning, so Mardis and I started a series of video called Future. You can find us on YouTube by typing Nonfiction Design. And Future has kind of like two types of themes. We talk about industrial design and how it's being practiced by people like us. And to us, design is not just, you know, sketching all day. It's also developing CAD. It's also integrating all the new tools and technologies that make our work a lot more efficient, is working with engineers, manufacturing, product development. So we go pretty deep into each subject. We also talk about the future of everything. So there are certain industries like the future of airlines, we just talked about, that where we talk about certain specific subjects within. And then actually last night, I don't know if any of you were able to participate, but we do a bi-monthly AMA. So we realized that potential clients, designers, students, anybody interested in design is asking us the same 30 questions, I would say. And so instead of repeating ourselves all the time, you know, or you know, carving out time to meet people one-on-one, we wanted to make a community event where people come with their ideas or their products and ask us questions. And if we have an answer, we'll give it to them. Otherwise, we'll connect them to the people who can. So yeah, so we have two timelines, one that works for West Coast in Asia, and the other one that works for East Coast, Europe and Africa. So yeah, join us at the next AMA. And now, questions and answers.
Close the share.
All right. Thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. For those who are watching, we've had the pleasure to sit down with Mardis last year, and we got him on our podcast, and you can find more information about him and you know, his journey through design. And that photo that you showed about the Maro plots, you know, that brings back some memories, because that's the university that I attended, and we had plans to meet, you know, Phnam this year to interview her as well, and unfortunately COVID kind of rained on our parade, but hopefully in the future we get to get her on our podcast as well. So thank you both very much for your lovely presentation. I do have a couple of questions before I start integrating some of these questions into our conversation. A question that I had, number one, I want to be a part of your school. That looks really awesome. Yes, schools are kind of like prisons. No, my question was regarding your, you know, nonfiction, regarding your consultancy. You were pretty, you know, pretty just blunt, straight up on who you work with. You don't accept interns, and you work with designers that know how to manufacture a product. Can you explain a little bit on why you function that way? And the reason why I'm asking is for those students who might be tuning in and probably curious on how you function in that format.
Yeah. So both Mardis and I are educators. So our way to kind of service those people who are still in school or interning, that's how we do it. And the reason why we don't have interns or junior members at Nonfiction is because the work that we do is extremely technical. It might have not looked like it in the presentation we just gave you, but the vast majority of conversations we have are business related or engineering related, because it is primordial for us that the products that we design make it to market. In order to do that, we need to work with people who one, are not afraid of working with engineers, which, you know, we all know that's a very common problem, and two, can have very smart conversations, right? Because we, as designers, are not necessarily trusted with our decision making, so we have to have the experience and the command of the design discipline to actually push good ideas forward. Because a lot of people will work against it. People are very averse to risk, but risk is really our favorite thing to do.
Thank you so much for answering that. I really appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, we're going to just dive into the questions. Here's a question. Your spatial design process touches a lot on the making things feeling natural and less rectilinear. Do you incorporate that methodology into your studio space itself? What would your ideal studio be like? And that's a question asked by Dom.
That's a very cool question.
Good question.
I'll let you answer it.
First off, we'll be moving into our new studio space in about a month. So we're pretty excited by that. We've already planned on, you know, knocking down some walls and redoing some things. So yeah, I would say that there's absolutely going to be more of an organic feel in there. There are a few things we'd love to do beyond sort of the traditional is have a living wall, bringing nature in. We live in San Francisco and work in San Francisco, and we have a ton of lights, skylights everywhere come in through the building, and we want to really take an opportunity to bring nature in and live with it. It lowers your heart rate, it makes everybody less stressed, anxiety, you know, levels are reduced, and I think sort of organic and natural aspect of it will definitely be in there. The other part of it is we do a little bit of computational design and generative design, and we have somebody specifically on our staff that's her main focus. And you know, we really want to start doing, I would say, larger panels and cladding, interior cladding that incorporate this sort of organic flowing feel.
Another thing is that we're going to integrate a pretty sophisticated material library. Really things that look intriguing, have a very interesting background or story, that feel a certain way, look a certain way, smell a certain way. That's going to be very, very much part of our you know, inspiration space. Another thing is our new kitchen is going to be quite big, and we wanted to get into food design, right? food design is very much about the experience of looking at things and smelling them and putting them in your mouth and the visuals and all that. So really playing with all the senses and beyond the five senses that we're taught in school, right? That's very much what nonfiction is about, because we believe, you know, as we said during our presentation, that's what the future should be about.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited for you both. That all sounds really awesome. I mean, because I came to visit, you know, last year to visit, you know, Mardis, and he gave me the grand tour. So I'm really excited for all these new developments. That's awesome. These concepts for education are great and also very intuitive to the way children learn and play. They're also a departure from the rigid structure that we have today. What do you see as some of the main obstacles to making this vision a reality in modern society across the world? That's a question asked by Marcos.
Yes. So when you take as much risk as we did during that project, you have to change the process of designing, right? If you went to any, you know, research lab, they would be like, well, let's list the top 20 ways of educating children and you know, mark which ones are more efficient or whatever. And we actually did that on the side. You know, we actually paid some researchers to do that on the side as designers were completely isolated from them and started working from pure intuition and personal experience. And that was a wonderful way of coming up with things, you know, that came from the heart, the things that were about the experience, the joy of being a child, of developing, of not following a schedule that was, you know, given to you by a government, right? By 18, you have to graduate high school. Why? You know, why can't you do it at 14 or 30, right?
It's extremely liberating to design without the heavy bias of research on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Research definitely has its place, but to start out with a raw mindset based on your own intuition and experience is exceptionally liberating.
And what's wonderful about working like this is that you come up with ideas that most people would not even think about, because they're afraid that, you know, some PhD somewhere would, you know, stop them and think they're idiots. That happens to us all the time. We don't care. But really, it's about putting it in an experimentation, putting kids through it, putting parents through it, and really seeing the magic that comes out of it and extract whatever we can to turn it into reality. You know, again, turning those crazy ideas into reality is our most important job.
And I'll add another a bit of detail to that. So bureaucracy would be one of the big things that is going to really have a hard time. Like in the US, I don't know if this will fly, right? This is why we're approached by Singapore and Japan. What's interesting about Singapore is they have some of the highest scores. They rank top in math and science and reading. Why are they changing their system if they're already doing well? Because they stepped back and they looked at how they're doing education. And they realized that, you know, they don't have a whole lot of natural resources. So they can't rely on just pulling trees out of the ground or mining or even drinking water. Honestly, they're, you know, surrounded by salt water. So they said, we need to do something different. How can we do it? And then there's a thing that we call innovation by desperation, right? If you're a desperate situation, you are going to innovate to get from point A to point B, no matter what, or point Z. And I think Singapore really touched upon that idea that, like, wow, we're doing fantastic, but will this always last? And can we do better? And in an environment like that, this program will succeed.
It helps that it's a tiny country with a lot of money and a very young government.
Sure.
That helps a lot.
Totally.
I love it. I think we're overdue for a huge disruption in education, and I'm so happy that you guys get to work on it. Even if it's not here, I think it's a good, you know, step forward so that we can see it happening in other countries, and hopefully one day, you know, we do something about it.
Yeah.
Here's a really good question. As the wealth gap increases, what are your thoughts on creating expensive technology that makes life significantly easier for the people who can afford it, while potentially leaving the underprivileged even further behind?
Well, part of the job that we do is to turn that technology into affordable products. And that can be done, you know, by developing the technology further year after year. You know, it gets cheaper typically, or smaller or lighter. But also, it is part of design and engineering to turn very expensive products into cheaper ones. If you design a product that's very easy to use, you're more likely to have a larger market, take larger markets. If you sell more of those products, then you hit higher MOQs, minimum order quantities, like manufacturing. And if you hit higher MOQs, your cost per product is actually lower. So it's kind of like a dance between everybody involved in the design and manufacturing of things in order to make products very cheap, right? I mean, think of all your smartphones. If you think of every single components that went into it, it's actually very expensive. But because they make so many of them, and the components that are bought in in the millions and millions, that's why it's attainable to everyone. I was talking to a homeless person this morning who had a smartphone, right? So it's that is how the world works. And as designers, we have to be aware of that, and we have to play with that and take it into account in the decisions that we make.
Yeah, I would go say that the Halo headphones that we designed, we showed you, when they first did the first sort of concept, it was priced at $750 approximately. We went back and we value designed and value engineered, made parts that weren't 50 different molds that have to come together, and reduced the mold count, part count, found other materials that dropped the price by half. So it's now like 300 and some, which is really interesting. Still, a little bit higher than many people's budget, but it's those kind of things that we can do to kind of really get them down.
Okay, thank you. Does working together and designing together cause a strain on your relationship, or possible the opposite?
Other things cause strain on the relationship.
Surprisingly not.
No, surprisingly not. So it was really interesting, right? When we both got out of school, we started practicing industrial design at different places. We'd come back and talk nonstop. We drove each other crazy. And for years, we said, we're not going to talk about work. And honestly, we can't talk much about it because it was NDA, and then until, like we said, we started Nonfiction, or Work for Matter, and realized we actually worked really well together. We had been married a few years. I think that helped, just kind of weather storms, if you will. And now, just like any, just like any relationship, not just a marriage, but a work relationship, you're going to have butt heads, you're gonna run into issues. The biggest thing is, and this is how we kind of hire people too, is we hire people that are able to get past that. Super important. We don't hire people that actually, hold this, deep grudge in. No, we're all human, we're all fallible, argue, get it out and get back to normal, right?
Yeah. In terms of personalities, Mardis and I are very complementary. We have very few natural things in common. I would say that the only thing we have in common is our values. Yeah. We have the same values, like personal values, political values, whatever. But when it comes to personality, Mardis is
very different.
Very nice. And I'm very pushy. I am the bulldozer. If I have an idea, I will fight to the death until it becomes reality.
Yeah, and I will negotiate to the death very, very softly. I'm, it's a little more direct and straight. There's never a misinterpretation of what Phnam is feeling at the moment, which is great though. It's a great value. We're very different in many ways, and somehow maybe that's part of the balance, right?
You start dressing like me though.
Well, that's good.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Here's a question by Colin. At the retail level, where do you see the future of selling and promoting a product? Majority focus online, or do you still see the brick and mortar still staying relevant post-pandemic and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be both. The neat thing is here we're in a 700,000 people city, plus the Bay Area is over 1 million. We haven't been to. So first off, there are no Walmarts. We go to small mom and pop shops all the time, every day, even now. And so they'll always be there. But in terms of Amazon, we do lots of orders on Amazon. I think direct to consumer is a huge thing, and it's not really because of COVID. That certainly has an effect. I think it's because the percentage, the markup that you have to have selling a product through Best Buy, through Walmart, through any of the big box retailers, that increases the cost, right? Drastically. There's a lot more logistics. You need a better support system, 3PL, all these individuals to help you sell your product, where if you're going directly from manufacturer to you, yes, you're going to save a lot. And I think more than COVID, that's probably going to make the biggest difference. But honestly, mom and pops will never go away. They might hurt a little bit. I personally, I love the mom and pops. That's what brings community and makes us all more relatable. And I hope that COVID just, I don't know, brings that back somehow.
Yeah.
Thoughts? That's it?
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing direct to consumer, you've had a lot of development in marketing ploys and use of social media, and how people want to belong to brands more than ever. And we're seeing a lot more efforts in terms of design and what kind of stratagems are being used to have people buy things they don't need. As this, one thing that's very interesting about us designers, Mardis and myself, is that even though we design mini products, we actually don't like to own things. Like the ultimate luxury would be to not buy anything for a year.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it comes with age, where you spend a number of decades consuming profusely. There's a sentimental connection that you get with the things that are left to you, that you buy for a specific reason. And I would like the world to change into that, to consume less, but to consume more emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a couple of more questions to ask, and we'll kind of wrap things up. One question here is asked by Joe. Do you have any advice for moving from one discipline within design to another, or expanding the types of work available as a designer?
So one advice I give everybody who asks for advice of that kind is, don't ever say no to everything, or don't ever say, I don't do this, I don't do that. I've always been of the school of thought of, you should try everything once. That's why when you look at my resume, it's like all over the place. I've done space, I've done bags, I've done all those things. It's because I've said yes to all of it. Every opportunity is an opportunity for you to grow. And you don't know if you're not going to like it until you start doing it, right? So it's the same thing in the world of design. If you want to do a little bit more business, if you want to do a little bit more engineering, if you want to talk to scientists or whatever, be in the room. It doesn't matter how young, how inexperienced, how whatever you are. Be in the room, listen to people, and absorb the information so you can use it at the later date, right? I'm a little bit tired of seeing people who are very specialized and have absolutely no interest in what the other person is saying. I find that very narrow-minded, and these people are typically not that interesting to develop new ideas with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would be what
Perfect.
I say about it.
Love it.
Yeah, it's very hard to have any type of impact in the future if you aren't able to understand other people and other disciplines. So very good advice. The last question that I want to ask is, what is a dream project that you'd like to work for, or even like a dream brand that you'd like to collaborate with?
Well, you know what I want.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to build a city on Mars.
Yeah.
Everything that's involved with it, the architecture, the I don't know. Sorry, there's a child
yeah.
dying outside right now.
It's so real. It's weird.
So yeah, like really being involved in transporting all the materials from asteroids or the moon to Mars or the Earth as well. Really thinking about the astrosociology of how people live on the different planets. What does it mean to be a Martian, right? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to import nature there, to live fulfilling lives, to inspire others to think beyond what has been given to them naturally? and really going beyond what we already know about life, right? That would be the dream project.
That's amazing. I would be more than happy to make an intro to Elon Musk and make a, introduce you guys to him.
All right, thank you.
You're friends with him? Great.
What about, is that the dream for the team, or do you have your own individual?
Oh, I'm definitely going in on that team too, on that dream. Yeah, mine's not too dissimilar actually. It actually is something we're already doing. The school's an amazing project, and we have really cool partners with vision that is so far. And having somebody that believes in you and gives you sort of the tools to make it happen is fantastic. The next step for me would be to apply this thinking to a community or a society, right? So, I love big cities. Except for Champaign, I've pretty much always lived in big cities. But I think, scaling a city at a certain size and managing sort of what we've talked about, a lot of the deeper emotional connections to community and flourishing and autonomy and finding purpose for people in those communities. Is it possible to throw out, legal tender altogether, where it's not even a barter, it's just an acceptance that we all do different tasks and we love them and we have this balance in society. And I think this is as much of a sociological experiment as it is a industrial design or architecture experiment or urban planning.
Well, fantastic. That sounds very exciting. I'm very excited for both of you, and thank you so much for sharing everything that you've done and everything that you're gonna do, and really excited to see what life is on Mars. So we'll be closely paying attention to that. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. This session has been recorded. We'll make this video available on our website and promote it early next week. For those who missed it, they can check it out. And please follow Nonfiction on social media and follow their YouTube channel. And for those who are tuning in, there is an After Lens, which is a really cool place where we party and have community to discuss the amazing topic that Phnam and Mardis both spoke about. So thank you for your time, and enjoy a great Thursday. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks everyone.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.